Hey everyone, Civic Extraordinaire here, and welcome to an exciting new video where I basically waste your time and make a new tier list. But in all seriousness, this video has come out essentially from the extremely popular Civ 6 tier list I did a while back, all the way in, what is it? I have to actually scroll back a whole page. When did I upload this? February 22nd, so like almost a month. Essentially almost a month, and this video has gotten like 10,000 views, which is absolutely insane, and I'm just blown away by how this is completely done amazing, but some of my scripted videos have done terribly in comparison. So you guys apparently want more tier list videos, and who am I to deny you your tier list videos? So anyway, by the title and by the thumbnail, probably you could already derive that this is a tier list on the improvements. And this shouldn't be as extensive as my other tier list video, but it still should be beefy, including this introduction and my explanations, but should be a bit more in depth for each ranking and everything. Also, I did change around the lettering. This is going to be based on letters and not like average or more relative things, so it's more of a solid and definite rank. So for those of you who complained, here you go. I now have a definite tier list. And I basically just modified one someone else put up. So thank you, whoever uploaded these icons. And maybe I'll even link the tier list in the description below if you guys want to see it. Anyhow, enough stalling. Let's get straight to the improvements. I want to move along fairly quickly and give a concise reasoning for my ranking for everything. I don't think Feitoria is actually listed, but I will still rank that if I can, just without the icon. Anyhow, starting off with the city-state tier list, we have the Alcazar first of all, which got a huge buff, kind of similar to the Chamomile and how it works after Gathering Storm. And it gets +2 culture, it fortifies, and it provides science equal to 50% of the tile's appeal. I'm going to immediately go ahead and rank this in A tier. I don't think it'd be S tier just because it kind of lacks like a tourism boost that the other improvements have. But that science and the culture by extension, as well as the defense strength, is super, super powerful. Okay, we have the Bate next. So I don't really use the Bate that much. But I'd probably rank it B tier. That flight and the extra culture is powerful, but I don't know if it's potent enough to actually warrant heavy spam and everything. But +1 culture for each adjacent bonus resource and entertainment complex, which increases to +2 culture with exploration, is pretty significant since exploration is kind of a mid-game tech. So maybe B tier, maybe A tier. I think probably B+ tier. If you guys think otherwise, please let me know in the comments below. And then let's move on to, what do we have next? Just trying to move along as quickly as possible. The Chokia mounds introduced in Gathering Storm. One of my favorite CS wonders. I always prioritize Chokia because I love the look of the mounds here. And they don't have an image for them, but they look quite glorious, especially when you place them next to districts. And they, by themselves, they aren't too potent. They'd probably like B- tier. But the amenities are especially helpful. Maybe I'll put them in C tier. I mean, they are kind of fun to play around with in theme, but I don't know if they are necessarily too potent. That gold and food is nice, but I don't know if it's that powerful, especially since it only becomes stronger later on. And food, like later on, like after mid-game, is not too powerful, unless you're like really maxing out Pingala. Okay. Next, we have the Colossal Heads, for La Venta, which give +2 faith, +1 culture, and +1 faith for adjacent woods and rainforests. Faith by itself isn't too potent of a yield, so I'm just going to place them in the C tier. I don't really think I ever have used the Olmec heads to a great extent for Civilization 6, so I guess the culture is nice, and the tourism from faith. But I don't know, maybe C plus B tier. The tourism is what is really going to put it over the edge. So it's kind of in that vague tier between C and B. So probably a bit stronger than the Chokia mounds though, just because of that tourism. Okay, so next is the Mahavihara. Not sure if I am pronouncing that correctly, but we have +2 science, and the most important thing from this is that you get a random tech when you build it, which is amazing with Babylon. And I think it's straight out just a tech and not just a Eureka, which is pretty potent, and that +1 science for each adjacent campus is very strong, so I'm just going to put it in B tier. Probably S tier if you can snag it with Babylon, but where is that icon? This is going to be the hardest thing throughout this tier list video. Not actually ranking the improvements, but actually ranking the ranking the icons here. Anyhow, yeah, I think that's okay for Nalanda, but +2 science will get you along fairly nicely. I don't know if that is A tier though. I don't know. Maybe it's A tier. Oh, I put it in C tier. I did not mean to put it in C tier. I think I'll put it in A tier actually. Kind of borderline, but that science should be nice. It's definitely better than culture. But the only bad thing about it is that there is no tourism for that. Now, the Moai, on the other hand, grant a ton of culture. I'm just going to immediately put them in the B tier. I have some experience with them. And, okay, I'm putting that in the correct tier. They have +1 culture for every 2 adjacent Moai, and you can really stack that, though I don't know if you want to, because tiles can be a bit competitive later on. And then they have additional tourism as you advance through the tech and civic tree, which can put them just slightly a bit above some other improvements like the farms and the mine, which is great. Next is the monastery, which is very, very underwhelming. I'm just going to put them in C tier. Where are they? Okay, here we are. I'm so sorry about that. But I'm just going to put them in C tier. Maybe even D tier. Because that's just +2 faith, and the healing is okay, but I mean, that has to be in your borders, and it's just for religious units. So it's just kind of taking up tile spots here, so I'm just really not too impressed with the monastery here. I guess it has a cool design. But outside of that, Armagh and Ireland's improvement in general, not too impressive here. Okay, what do we have next? The Nazca line. Now, this is an interesting improvement because it makes deserts a lot better to deal with. And they don't actually have an image for that. But basically, it's kind of like a mini Petra in that you cannot work it itself like a wonder. But the adjacent tiles become much better with additional food production and appeal, which can sync well with preserves. So I'm going to say, just because it is kind of situational, it is nice for desert starts, but if you get Nazca and you're not near a desert, it can be a bit bad. But that saying, it is a bit specific, and I think it is only available on, flat desert, so it could be S tier if you have a super flat desert start, but I'm just going to say, with the start conditions and everything and the restrictions, it's probably just B tier there. That's kind of my reasoning. But the appeal is going to be really, really nice with preserves and everything. So, who do we have next? I think our last city-state improvement, we are really moving quickly here. The Trading Dome. The Trading Dome, I think, with Samarkand and then the Mahavihara were both introduced with the Babylon pack. And this one is not as effective, probably C tier, maybe even D tier, just because that gold is not too useful. I think I'll put it at C tier. Here it is. They really like domes in the Babylon pack. I don't know what it is with them, but man, they're really pining for those domes. Anyhow, again, not too impressive, I guess. Especially as you go later on, the gold is not going to be that useful because you're going to be getting more and more of it from various sources like commercial hubs. And the international trade routes, I guess, unless you're Portugal, is not going to be too useful. So, yeah, that gold is just, it's okay. I guess basically the flat 2 gold is nice, and then +1 for every adjacent luxury resource, but it's not going to become powerful. It's just losing its potency later on, so maybe it's nice in the early game, but later on it's just not going to be as effective, so you might want to remove it for something else. It doesn't stay as consistent like with the Moai and even the Alcazar to a later extent. Okay, now we finally have the more extensive and more interesting, if I might add, the leader improvements or the civ improvements. Some leaders have improvements by themselves. I think some do, like with the Inca. But anyway, we have the Chateau with France. And what the Chateau does is, depending on whether you have Catherine de Medici or Black Queen Catherine, I believe her alternate is called. Basically what the Chateau does is it's restricted to rivers, but I mean, it gives additional culture and appeal, and then additional culture if adjacent to a wonder. And then if you're Magnificence Catherine, it gives additional culture if adjacent to a luxury. So depending on whether or not you're Magnificence Catherine, I'd say if you are Party Catherine, as I like to call her, Magnificence Catherine, I'd put her in B tier, the Chateau that is. But if you are Black Queen, I put it in C tier because it does come late and it has some pretty strict requirements, especially if you want to max that out to +4 culture. Whereas with Party Catherine or Magnificence Catherine, there it is, you are going to have a bit of an easier time getting those Chateau pairings, and I guess it also is just a nice looking improvement overall too. I don't really consider that when ranking these improvements, but I mean, I guess that is a kind of a bonus if you like taking screenshots like I do. Anyhow, next we have the Chamomile, and that is a bit of a controversial improvement just because people tend to hate the Mapuche. The Chamomile is one of the reasons I really love the Mapuche and why I decided to do Let's Play on them like way back. And that's just because they kind of mess around with appeal. Unfortunately, they do not pair well with preserves, but providing 75% of the tiles appeal, so if you have a breathtaking tile, you get like 3 culture, is super insane, and provides, since you get it like early at masonry, it provides that you will get some insane culture yields. So just because of that, I think I might even put them at A tier, because the Chamomile are really what saved the Mapuche and just really, really vault them up. I think they even give adjacent tourism with flight, and that's almost S tier if you can really get the mountains, but they're not always guaranteed. I'd say that's like an A+ improvement. They are just so good, especially if you can tie them in with Earth Goddess. And even with that, that is just, or especially with that Pantheon belief, if you can snag it as the Mapuche, it can be super good for early Pantheons or early religion outputs and everything with faith and culture, and then later on tourism. So the Chamomile really never outlives its usage. Okay, now we have the Horia, and this is actually a fairly new improvement, so new that in fact that I don't even think we have the icon here for the Horia. No, I don't think we do. We have the Mission and we have the Hacienda, but no Horia. So I think I'm going to probably rank the Horia in C tier, maybe B tier, because there's not too much usage out of it aside from, I guess you kind of get it late, and by then you're already going to be maxing out Portugal's gold in my experience. So it is useful, I guess, for the production. But aside from that, due to the fact of how it aids the enemy, or the AI and the competing AI, and it allows them to get gold much easier, I'd probably just put it at C tier, because you're really only using it just to max out gold. I guess the production does help, but maybe C tier, maybe B tier. The problem is that it just buffs the enemy cities more so than your cities. But that's kind of where I'd rank the Horia in my experience. Who knows, the ranking could change later on, but probably C or B tier with them. Now the golf course, I am a bit conflicted on the golf course. By itself, it is a pretty shitty improvement, D tier, but maybe with Scotland considered, and you're only going to be building it with Scotland, I'd put it in C tier. The amenities and the gold is nice, but it is super annoying to kind of pair it with city centers. Well, it's easy to pair it with city centers, I guess, but if you're going for a commercial hub and you have islands and everything, like with harbors, you may not want to waste your valuable city center tiles, adjacent city center tile slots, especially if you're going for wonders or anything. But the extra bonuses from that aren't too powerful. The big thing with golf courses is that they give extra amenities for Scotland, which in turn boosts their abilities through Scottish Enlightenment, which is extra science and great people points in production. So that's really the strength of the golf course there. I do like the design of it though. Okay, they did buff it, I think, too, but still kind of weak. Okay, now we have the Great Wall. That is actually an amazing improvement here. I'm probably put it in S tier, maybe the first S tier improvement here, just because it comes so early at Masonry. That is like, I think, still in the Ancient Era, later Ancient Era tech tree, and it gives +2 culture for each adjacent Great Wall, which is amazing, and tourism on top of that, I believe. I think so, right? Tourism on top of that. I think it does, maybe. And then, of course, it can only be pillaged. It can never be removed by natural disasters. Maybe they took away the tourism bonus. Oh, yes, it does provide tourism later on. And the extra gold, which is kind of ironic since the Great Wall is super expensive to maintain. China spends like billions on it each year. Anyhow, the extra culture, like you can get +4 culture from these segments alone if you can really chain it. And the easy placement requirements, it just has to be built on your border. That makes the Great Wall an insanely good improvement since you can get like +4 culture right from the offset, like the classical era, and with Qin Shi Huang's abilities here with the extra builder charges. It is super easy to build, not so much with Kublai, but it is super easy to build these wall segments, and they're just so powerful, as well as the fortification defense, which is just the cherry on top. It is an insanely easy, great improvement. It does everything right for great improvements. Culture, tourism, it gets stronger later on. And It's just so good. Though I think I might have misspoken. The culture comes at castles, so it's still good. You're getting like a +4 culture tile for like all of your border tiles, which is still just insane. And they can be built anywhere. So, okay. Next we have the Hacienda or the Hacienda. I think they moved it back because it kind of came late. But it is a good tile. It can be built like everywhere. It kind of reminds me of the Outback Station, maybe a bit of a weaker version for that. But the extra food from plantations and everything with the adjacency bonus is really good. I don't play with Gran Colombia too much, but that is a really good tile nonetheless. I think I'll put it in like A tier. So where is that? Maybe B tier. Just because it kind of comes a bit too late to kind of make use of that food. But that production is nice, so I think I'll put it in B tier. Okay, that is the correct icon, and I love the design. Those fences are pretty cool. But aside from that, of course, design does not factor into that. The problem is it just comes at mercantilism, which is a bit late. I think that's Renaissance era stuff. And, ooh, we have the ice hockey rink. Okay, they actually had to move this back. It was usually, I think it was at professional sports, but they decided to push that back because that was like way too late. Now it's at colonialism, and I still think it comes a bit too late. I mean, I understand why it's a effing ice hockey rink. Even like colonialism is a bit too early for it, but I mean, Canada's already like a super weak civ, so they have to give it what they can give it. I'd probably put this at B tier just because it makes tundra tiles more palpable. I think that's the word I'm looking for. And they can kind of terraform, I guess you could say, snow tiles. They don't make them that much better, but the extra culture is useful. I don't think it gives tourism equal to culture, but it does give extra food and production, though I think that comes a bit too late. So it kind of faces the problem some of the other unique improvements have, where later on it becomes slightly stronger, but not enough to justify its placement necessarily. But since tundra tiles are usually going to be open with Canada, I don't know. I think it's okay. Slightly above average. You just have to fix Canada by itself, which is kind of another issue I have. I think I go over that in my tier list video. But we have the Kampung with Indonesia, another good improvement. And the Kampung basically maximizes coastal resource yields. I think it gives some tourism too. Tourism per food bonus. I'd probably put this at A tier just because it is so versatile. And as Indonesia, it's really your bread and butter just to kind of place that and terraform the coastal tiles. And by terraform, I throw that word around a lot. And I'll probably use it when I talk about the Outback Station. But what I mean is it just makes the food and production yields, or just yields in general, and other usually unhospitable tiles like deserts and tundra and coast to an extent, it makes those yields so much better. And it can be really gross, the Kampung, with harbors, because harbors do buff, with their buildings, they buff coastal tiles. So that tourism is just the kicker. That is an amazing improvement there, Kampung. I don't know if it's as great as the Great Wall, but still really good. Okay, the Kurgan, one of the bad improvements in my opinion. The Faith and Gold, kind of the lesser resources, or at least lower ranking resources on at least my, I don't know, they're just not as good as like science and culture and production, but they give Faith and Gold. I think they even give food. No, they just give Gold and Faith from adjacent pastures, and they're just kind of shitty in my opinion. You just build them on plains just to take up tile spots, but aside from that, they're kind of strict, and I don't know if I'd like them. I like them in the state that they are. If I had to change them, maybe I'd give them food and culture and some tourism later on with flight, like some of the other unique improvements. But aside from that, I don't even like the look of them, so I don't know. The nice thing is that you can kind of spam them everywhere, but aside from that, Faith and Gold aren't really going to help you grow your empire too much or help you pump out more horse units. So, not that Scythia has that problem though, but the Faith is not too helpful. Okay, next we have the Makeit, which from the Cree. This one is a bit contentious just because the food kind of comes a bit too late, and the theming is a bit too hard because you have to place it next to bonus and luxury resources, which by itself isn't too hard, but you really start to see the bonuses from conservation, which kind of comes late. It is like in the industrial era, or the modern era, wow. So I'm completely off today, but the bonuses which really make this strong, like some of the other improvements, come way too late in my opinion. So I think I'll probably only place it like C tier, maybe B tier, you really have to wait a bit with the Makeit Wops to start getting use out of them. So if I had to buff it, maybe I'd just move some of the culture, or not, there's no culture, the food and production bonuses forward a bit. Maybe from conservation to like medieval fairs, just to kind of buff that out. Okay, now we have the Spanish. And it looks like I don't know what they're doing here. What is this? Oh, that's just the plunder yields, okay. But I was like, the Makeit Wop doesn't heal. What the hell is going on there? But it's just what you get from when you plunder the improvement. Anyhow, the Mission, this has been changed with a ton, as you can see. It's already moving up into the space of the Makeit Wop. I was like, what the hell? The Makeit Wop doesn't give science, but this is just the Mission, or the mission. And it's basically a Spanish church improvement. They used these during colonial times to kind of spread Catholicism. And it is actually a pretty underrated improvement, in my opinion. It comes a bit late at exploration, but this is really what makes Spain a bit of a strong... I don't know. It's kind of controversial for me to say Spain is a bit of a stronger civ. But it puts Spain above average in terms of improvements just because the extra science from cultural heritage and then +2 if built next to a campus is pretty strong, especially with the +1 food and production and then loyalty I think it also gives. So I'm going to put this at like maybe B tier, maybe A tier. I don't know, that extra science is pretty powerful. But that is like the one good thing out of Spain's toolkit. The rest of it is dog shit. So the Mission is kind of its saving grace. No pun intended, of course. No Catholic jokes there. Anyhow, the Nubian Pyramid, one of the worst improvements in my opinion, simply because it tries to make Nubia viable. Well, it's a desert tile. I'll put that in D tier. You also have to really go out of your way to maximize yields off of that. And even then, the yields for like city center, adjacency, and campuses, if you really strive to build Nubian pyramids, is not too good. If I had to buff this, I'd give it like a minor adjacency and then maybe only make it like 1 per city, but buff these to like +2 on the tile. And that's probably all I'd do. Nubia really shines because of the Tasedi archers, not necessarily because of the Nubian pyramids. So, who is next? Okay, we have Sweden with the Open Air Museum, and they get +2 loyalty. That's okay by itself when you're building these at, like, what is this? Nationalism. I don't play around with Sweden too much, you can probably tell. But when you build these around, like, nationalism, okay, the text even there, I don't think it loaded for me properly. The +2 loyalty isn't going to be too useful, but what you're really looking for is the +2 culture and +2 tourism. And you really go on your own theming adventure, kind of like collecting different exotic animals, but with like reindeer, I guess, and terrain types with Sweden and the Open Air Museum. So just for that reason, very potent with the tourism and everything. I think I just put it at B tier, maybe A tier. They can be super potent later on if that is a big if, you go around with Sweden and maybe your Carolayans and you liberate cities and you kind of maximize your Open Air Museum placement and terrain. So super useful. But again, you kind of have to expand and conquer as Sweden, which isn't really their thing. They're more of a passive tourism victory, where they like to theme with their museums and everything with Christina. So just B tier, because, I mean, if you maximize it, it could potentially be S or A tier. But, I mean, with Sweden's toolkit, you do have to conquer to kind of maximize the Open Air Museum there. Unless you get a really lucky start with, like, tundra and jungle and desert. But that is not too likely with Sweden's placement. The Outback Station is absolutely bonkers in my opinion, just because the food, the production, and the housing. I mean, like, probably A tier just out of the get-go. Like a better Hacienda in my opinion. So where is it actually? Here it is. And what it does well actually, is it improves tiles for basically no cost at all. You just plop the Outback Station down on a tile and it gives you additional food production, which gets stronger early on, and it just goes on and on from there. And it is unlocked at guilds, which is like ridiculous considering you unlock the Hacienda at like what? Mercantilism? I don't know. What is this, Renaissance era? It has to be. Okay, yeah, it is Renaissance era. And it's essentially a better Hacienda with none of the caveats. So it's just insane. It is amazing. A tier definitely, especially for some of the rougher starts there. Okay, who is next? The Maori and the Pa. Kind of similar to the Roman fort. I don't think the Pa has any unique... Oh, it actually does have a unique design, not like the Roman fort. But basically heals Maori units faster, and it grants additional defensive strength. So kind of one of the more basic unique improvements. No, not necessarily any special caveats there, but I think they can only be built by the Toa. Yep, and the Toa are fairly strong by themselves. So the Pa, just definitely a nice toolkit for the, or a nice tool in the toolkit of the Maori. And I don't think I put it any higher above B tier, but it's a nice fort that can be kind of placed anywhere and lets the Maori units heal super fast. Okay. And now we have the Padideza. Okay, so the Padideza, I kind of like to play around with this with Persia and with its culture bonus. It basically grants extra culture and gold and appeal. And I guess the appeal is the strong part of the Padideza, especially with preserves. But I don't know if I'd place it any higher than B tier just because outside of the culture and gold, the appeal is really what you're looking for. It kind of has restrictive requirements. It can't be placed in snow or tundra, which is unfortunate, and it can't be placed next to a Paradisa, which is kind of what is stopping me from placing it at A tier. If it could be placed adjacent to other Padidezas, I'd place it at like A tier, but you kind of want to theme this next to districts, so you'd be hoping to place it next to other Paradisa, but unfortunately that is not so. So it's just B tier for me. Okay, we're slowly making our way towards the end here, and we have the Polder, which also comes at guilds like the Outback Station, but it is a more unique coast, and it is the twist is that it can be built on the coast and only on the coast when adjacent to 3 hill or plains tiles, just like flat or hilly tiles, no mountains, no. Those don't count, unfortunately, but I like the Polder. I'd probably place it at like B tier, just because I love the design, and it is fun to theme with those, but the restrictions can be a bit more tough. This is one of the improvements that do have strict restrictions. You have to build it next to 3 flat tiles, so flat or hilly tiles, so that is a bit unfortunate. They did change it in Rise and Fall shortly after because it was too hard to place down, but you're really going to get use out of this on archipelago maps. Or island plates maps, not so much on Pangea maps, but that's fine. I still consider it a fairly decent wonder, and I think it gets stronger, like at replaceable parts. So if it had some kind of tourism bonus, I don't think it does, that would be pretty nice. Okay, and it is also harder to invade with polders, so that's another thing. Unfortunately, it does not stop flooding as far as I know, but I think the Dutch have another bonus for that. So I think that comes from Grot Riviera, which is kind of nice. Okay. Next, we have the Capac Non, which is kind of a weird improvement. The Inca get 2 unique improvements, which is kind of nice. They could basically say, hey, my dad lets me have 2 unique improvements instead of 1. Kind of a bad joke, but I guess I'd place the Capac Non at like C tier, just because it's nice for the Inca because it helps them navigate mountain tiles. But aside from that, I don't know. Like outside of mountain tiles, you're not going to build it really. So it's just a tunnel. It doesn't really improve things. It just allows you to move easier. It's not like it gives you super, super big yields. So I guess I just give it C tier. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just okay. And for that, I'm kind of done with the Capac Non. It is nice that it unlocks foreign trade, though. So, and it can't be plundered, which is nice. Okay. Now we're like on to the last 5. So next we have the, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6. I can't count today. The last 6. So for the Raccoon Church, by itself, it's okay, but with Ethiopia, it is super, super powerful. So I think I'd put it at like, with Ethiopia, it's good. Without Ethiopia, it's kind of shitty. A tier, I think, not S tier, A tier, because you are not always guaranteed to get hills and mountains with Ethiopia. You do get hilly starts, but you do have to kind of settle on hills as Ethiopia, which is a caveat to kind of get the faith bonus, the faith conversion bonus. So I'm not counting secret societies in this video, and if I did, it'd probably be S tier, but for now, I guess A tier. The faith output is super, super good since it is converted into science and culture, and the tourism conversion is really nice. You know what? I think I will put this on S tier, just a loose S tier, just because it is so, so versatile. And you can just really spam faith with it and kind of get that conversion. And the tourism kind of puts it over A tier. It's just super, super good and so, so versatile, especially since it can be built on volcanic tiles. Well, technically they can be called volcanic tiles, but volcanic soil. and that kind of gives it an edge as well. Especially since volcanoes count as mountains, I think. So just so good with Ethiopia. I think that's all I have to say about it. Okay, moving on. We have the Roman fort. Same thing as the Pa. I guess just a little weaker since it doesn't give as much healing. So here you go, Roman fort. It's basically one of the few improvements that basically, I say basically a lot, but it is a basic improvement. It's the same as a fort, but the legions can build it. Unfortunately, it has no unique. Is that a unique Roman look? I don't know about that. Okay, that's just a medieval fort, I think. So it has like no unique design. It's basically a fort, but it's just called a Roman fort, which technically is a unique improvement, but it doesn't replace anything, so it's not really a replacement. Kind of in a weird spot, but okay. Moving on, we have the Sphinx, and this is kind of a dicey improvement. I think I put it at like B tier. It's nice, but it's not too nice. Kind of like with some of the other improvements, we have a lot of B tier improvements. That's just kind of where they are. They're above average, but not too above average. What's nice is that they can be built on floodplains, and they are immune to floodplain damage or flooding, and they are unlocked early. But I don't think the additional culture and faith is too good. Yeah, the appeal is really nice, though, for preserves. So I think I just put the Sphinx there. I don't know if you're going to get too much culture out of the wonders. Did they take away the wonders? Okay, you get +2 faith, which is not really worth it. Unless you're going for Void Singers. So probably B tier, not C tier. I think they're slightly above C tier, but just barely. So that's kind of my reasoning. Oh, okay, the Stepwell. Kind of getting onto some of the weaker improvements down the list. I don't play with India too much, namely because their bonuses are so weak. The Stepwell does not help. I think I put them at C tier, maybe C+ tier. So they're okay, but they're not too insane. The extra food is nice, but the plus faith is kind of negligible. And you're only really using that if using Void Singers. And aside from Void Singers and that like specific game mode, it's kind of useless. Maybe if you're going for heroes, I guess, with heroes and legends. But aside from that, I don't know. Yeah, the bonuses kind of come in late, especially since the wonder by itself, it is versatile, but the food, it's just kind of lackluster, especially since India doesn't have any bonuses towards like specialists or extra pops. And for that reason, it's just kind of a C tier. It's okay. Maybe C+, but the Stepwell just doesn't really stand out. Okay, now we have the the Terrace Farm. The Terrace Farm is one of my favorite improvements for the Inca just because you can get insane amounts of food with it. Probably A tier, maybe B tier, kind of in that borderline area. And because you get it so early at like, you get it like right from the start. You don't even need a tech for it, just because you can build it outright and like rush settlers and everything, just because you have so many pops early on. That is why it's so strong. Not necessarily because of the extra production of food. And they are important facets of the Inca toolkit, but just because you can get settlers out so early, and they just really make the Inca the Inca. When people think of the Inca, they think of their terrace farms, not necessarily their Capac or their other production towards mountains, which is unique and interesting. But they usually just think of the terrace farm just because that extra food is so memorable, and it also makes the Empire look very interesting, since they are kind of spammable on hills, and they get bonuses from rivers in this game too. I don't think they did in Civ 5, but nonetheless, we are onto our last improvement, the Ziggurat, and my voice is almost dead, so I want to get through this as quickly as possible. But the Ziggurat is kind of spammable. I put it in B tier, our last little wonder here. And we have almost 2 rows of B tier wonders or improvements. I've been saying wonders the whole time. Holy crap. You can tell how tired I am. But just for you guys. Oh la la. The plus 2 science and culture is really nice with the Ziggurat. My voice is like killing me. But the I don't know, maybe I just build 1 per city. The lack of faith with the Ziggurat is kind of ironic since it is like a holy site. Yeah, the pyramids and everything there, like terrace pyramids, and they're like kind of holy sites in like Sumerian lore and everything. They were the first to build these things, with the temple being like the holy spot for the priests and everything, like World History 101. Thank you so much. But the science is really nice. That's what really is bringing this up, blabbering aside. The Ziggurat really benefits from science and the super lax placement. But aside from that, there's nothing that really pushes it over the edge. The plus 2 science and the plus 2 culture is nice, But if it got some extra tourism later on, that would be really, really helpful. So, I'm exhausted if you couldn't tell, but this has been my Civ 6 tier list for unique improvements, and I hope you guys really like this. I'm hoping this video does well, since it's probably taken like 30 minutes to record this. I don't know, it's almost 7, you can see like right here for my calendar and everything, my timer, whatever. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you like the video, please help me subscribe. Please help me by subscribing, and we're trying to hit 500 subscribers. I hope we can do that within this week. I don't know, that's kind of a lofty ambition, but our recent videos have been doing super well. So if you want to help the channel, go support me by subscribing, leaving a like, and if you want to see more of this content, let me know in the comments below. But I hope to see you guys later, and have a great rest of your week. Peace.